I want to thank you all for coming today. We have a great presentation for you. Before we get started, just a couple upcoming announcements. February, as we all know, is Heart Month. Ohio State has partnered with Million Hearts Initiative to prevent 1 million heart cardiovascular diseases by 2022. So you can visit nursing.osu.edu/heartmonth to see all of our educational programs. Additionally, we have a couple upcoming events from our office, the 2019 Annual State of Health and Wellness, to feature all of the great events that happened through wellness here at Ohio State from 2018, and then the 2019 ROTC Wellness Boot Camp. Registration has just opened, so you can visit go.osu.edu/wellness bootcamp for more information. Today's Lunch and Learn is titled Preventing Heart Diseases. I would like to introduce our speaker, Dr. Baliga. He is a professor of internal medicine at The Ohio State University. Good. So there was people here from last year. Great. Okay. And Associate Chief of Division Director for the Division of Cardiovascular Medicine here at the Wexner Medical Center. Please welcome Dr. Baliga.
Thank you.
Just want to let you know there was an issue with the slides this morning, so some of the slides in your documents are outdated. I will get the new ones and then send them to you in the follow-up email. All right. And then without further ado.
No, there is a link which I have to run. Can you help me?
Yeah.
To build?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Just flag it
Thank
down.
you. Thank you for the introduction, Josh. And these are my disclosures. But I think the most important part, as he said, we are the Ohio State University. I still chuckle about it.
My first event last time, right?
Yeah. So, I'm talking about cardiovascular health, but really, life is a balance of 4 pillars, as you all know. Health, wealth, family, and what we do for society. If we do only work on our wealth, work on our career and money, then health suffers, family suffers. If we only do community work, then you won't make wealth. You'll be like Mother Teresa. It's a fine balance between these 4 pillars. And on the health part, I'd like to touch upon mainly, it's kind of the 3 big parts: the physical, the spiritual, and the mental. Okay. And I'm a cardiologist, so the mental part I won't talk much about. But we all use our left brains a lot. We read, we do our work. And what I'd like you all to encourage you all to consider every day is to use your right brain. Do your art. Tracy, who helps me out, she does a lot of art. So try to work on your right brain. Try to work on music. So every day, think of doing one right brain activity, and it's so important. And I'll talk. And the spiritual part, I'm going to touch upon it a little bit later, but not necessarily going to spirituality with religion, but it's kind of, they're all connected, but it contributes to better health. And I think we also need to help the community, and I think one of the things I actually put on my calendar so that it becomes a part of my DNA. I don't no longer do it, but is to ask yourself every day, who can I help someone every day? It can even be just holding the door, something small, but you want to consciously think about it, because then it becomes a part of your routine. Okay. So this is statistics of the cardiovascular disease in the in the U.S. And these statistics are fresh off the press. It just came out last week. Okay. Every year the AHA comes out with statistics, and it's estimated over 700,000 of us have a new coronary attack every year. A new heart attack, and about 300,000 will have a second one or a third one. So about 1 million are affected. Every 26 seconds, one of us has a heart attack, and it's a big deal. And every 40 seconds we have a stroke. And so today's lecture is to focus on preventing heart attacks and strokes as we get older. I do want, and I know we have the big James Cancer Center, and I'm also the director of the cardio-oncology program. But just to put it in context, women, especially women in the US, each one of this is 5 deaths per 100,000 women. More women die of heart disease and stroke than breast cancer, ovarian cancer, uterine cancer, or HIV. Okay? And all this is eminently preventable with good preventative measures. So if you look at that, and so the cancer gets a lot of the press because a lot of the women who get cancer are young, so it's kind of understandable. But heart disease is a big deal. And one of the things is women don't get typical chest pains. They get discomfort, and they always delay accessing care because they don't get the sharp pain which men get. And a lot of heart attacks are missed. In fact, just the other day I had a patient in a clinic. He said, it's a little chest discomfort. I think the people in the Midwest are very stoic. You know, they don't come to the doctor when they're at the edge of the cliff. They come to the doctor where they're fallen off, hanging by one finger. I think I got a little heartburn. If people from Hollywood, a little pimple on the nose, they'd be calling me, give me propofol or something, you know. So what I'm trying to tell you is don't ignore the chest. It's better to be safe than sorry. Especially, as doctors, we do 2 things. We manage risk, and we manage families and patients' expectations, okay? And especially, okay, if you're 19 years old and you get the chest pain, the pretest probability of getting heart disease is lower. But if you're much older, and your pretest probability of getting heart disease, if you have a family history of heart disease, you have high cholesterol, smoker, then your pretest probability is higher. So if you get those chest discomfort, you don't want to ignore it. You want to take it seriously, okay? Especially, if it's your mother or your grandmother or your grandfather, even men after the age of 65 get atypical pain. They don't get the sharp pain. Diabetics don't get the regular pain because the pain fibers are altered in diabetes and in aging. So it's really important to remember that. And even now, even in the Heart Month, we're making progress, but we have got a long way to help women recognize their heart disease and heart pain. So keep this in mind. So what is a heart attack? And so if you look at the blood supply to the heart, so just like I have blood supply here to my hand here, so if you magnify this in an 18-year-old, it looks nice and smooth, okay? As you get older, cholesterol gets deposited, or if you have a family history of heart disease, or if you are diabetic, and it's just like my reading glasses and my gray hair. As you get older, this is going to happen, okay? And so it's something to keep in mind. But you can slow it down, just like I can put some L'Oreal in my hair and slow it down. You can slow it down too, okay? And similarly, the stroke is no different, actually. If people don't understand what a stroke is, this is these cholesterol getting deposited. Can you see that? And if a clot forms in the middle, the blood supply to the brain gets affected and you get strokes. So it's all about, I call vascular disease, the blood supply to the heart, blood supply to the brain, and blood supply to other parts of the body. So what Dr. Budalis, Dr. Mazzaferri, my partners, and other interventional cardiologists, what they can do is, Dr. Cindy Baker, they can go in there. So this clot shuts the vessel off, the muscle dies, and that's what he calls a heart attack, okay? So they can actually, Dr. Cindy Baker can go in there, put the stent in, open up the heart, and look at, and then they use a balloon to deploy the stent. And the stent looks like that little spring which we used to have in our ball pens. Remember in the, And then and of course don't tell the interventional cardiologist I said that, But it's really cool that now, and these stents actually have coating of drugs to keep it open. See, one of the problems of stents is they can close. So it's something to remember. We can prevent it, and that's why we want you to, if you have discomfort or chest pain, you want to sort of pay attention to it. And bypass surgery is, if there are blockages and they can't open it up with a stent, they can actually take the artery which from, there's this artery which goes to your which goes to your left arm here, and there is an artery here which supplies the front of your chest. Okay, they can take that and connect it to your blood supplies. For example, if it's blocked here, they can go distal to it and connect it. It's really cool that these people can actually, even after 30 years of being a doc, it blows my mind that these surgeons can do it. And in fact, the first cardiac bypass surgery was done at Cleveland Clinic here in Ohio. Yeah, go ahead. They last for long. If in many of our patients, if they are, it all depends on how compliant they are. If they continue to smoke, they don't take the blood thinners. If they don't take care of their diabetes, it can shut within months or days if they don't take the blood thinners. But we have had patients whose stents have been open for years. Even heart transplants have been open for years. We have patients 20 years. I'm on the inpatient service now. I came running down. I was rounding. There's this 18-year-old child. I shouldn't say child, but she's an 18-year-old kid. She got her heart transplant when she was 22 months old. Can you beat it? I mean, it's amazing that now they can do bypass surgery in utero. So in the fetus, they can fix it. It's amazing, the modern medicine. The very thought kind of, So these stents can last, but it all depends on, every patient is kind of different, And similarly, the bypass grafts, they can last 20, 30 years, And one more piece of information is, I don't know, many of you, if you have a weak heart or if you have an electrical rhythm, they can go through they can put this little pacemaker device, okay, and they can put leads here. You can see one lead. This is the right ventricle. This is the left ventricle. They got one lead here in the right atrium and one lead in the right ventricle. And I'll show you so you can see the lead here in the right ventricle, and then the other lead sitting here. And this is the electrical conducting system. It's really interesting. This thing is quite small under the skin here. It's all computerized, And what it does is, so this is a patient who was going on a trip to Hawaii. They put this device, and the heart, you don't need to be a cardiologist. This heart has gone into chaotic rhythm. And it's called ventricular fibrillation. That's why we do this cardioversion when there's a cardiac arrest, in the airport. And look at this. It gives you a shock and it's back into regular rhythm. It's amazing. This patient got off the flight and had a great vacation in Hawaii. This was reported in the New England Journal about 20 years ago. And this is what our EP doctors do. Dr. Dowd, Dr. Hummel, Dr. Kalbflesh, Dr. Weiss, and Okabe. So it's amazing. This is where a lot of the advances in medicine have come. The engineers have done all this for us. We worked with engineers. It's really a success to science, and not only medicine to make this happen, So today I'm going to talk to you about Life Simple 7, okay? I'm going to touch upon some of this. I can't do justice all in 1 hour, but I'm going to try to. I'm not going to talk about smoking because we are on tobacco-free campus, But it's hard to quit smoking. I have family members who struggle to quit smoking, even though they're CEOs of companies listed on the NASDAQ. So what I'm trying to say, this is an addiction. It's really hard. And if people might not know, anyone went to Duke University? No? So the Duke family, they made all their money from tobacco, And it's an addiction. Like I like my coffee, it's hard, and coffee is not supposed to be addictive, Just think about it, So I'm very sympathetic to people who can't smoke, and we try to help them, try to give them a nicotine patch or things to do, Sometimes it takes 2 or 3 attempts if you have family members who are smoking, so don't be hard on them. Don't yell at them. It's not easy, So today I'm going to talk to you about an 8th thing, really what I've been recommending to my patients, a bit of a holistic approach. I get them to write about what I call, just before they go to bed, 3 things what they're grateful for that day. Okay, it's called the 3 good things. And it kind of, there's anecdotal reports that people live better, people live longer if they do that. And it kind of makes sense. I have patients who go to bed angry, all the bad hormones are up, okay? If they write a gratitude journal, that they write 3 good things what they're grateful for, then, you go to bed for about 10-15, most of us have supportive families and maybe say a small prayer before we go to bed, but that's very fleeting. What you really want to do is maintain a journal, keep a book and write 3 things just before you go to bed. And what it does is, all the good hormones go up, you have a restful before you go to sleep, you sleep well, and then you energize next day. So I encourage, for the last 8 months, I've been encouraging all my patients to maintain a gratitude journal. And in fact, I was telling one of my nurses this, and she's making all her kids do 3 things. One is any good thing. One is to recognize somebody who has helped them, like even holding a door. It doesn't have to be like huge help, like saved your life kind of thing, And the 3rd thing is, in some ways, you write down how you helped somebody else, All positive thoughts. And so I'm encouraging all my patients to do it. And so it's kind of a holistic thing. And so I encourage all of you to consider keeping a gratitude journal. And one of my patients told me that men write diaries and women write journals. Go figure, I don't know what the difference is, but so write it in your journal or write it in your diary, something to keep in mind. So this is, I'm going to show you the obesity trends again because it's kind of impacts our society. So this is how the US looked from an obesity map between 1990 and 1998. And if you look at it, Ohio year, we are, and this is in 2006, over 30% of us are, have challenges with BMI more than 30%. So I'm going to go through this very quickly. So if you look at Ohio, keep looking at Ohio and Michigan. We're just competing with them, okay? Now they're caught up with us. In 1988, they caught up with us with obesity, okay? And look at this now. The rest of the country is catching up, even Florida with all the good weather, even California. 1992, that's 30 pounds when you're 5'4" and above. And look at this, and slowly they beat us, but we catch up with them. And now 20% of the population, there you go. Just wanted to put it in context that this is a big challenge, I know. And I came from a family of big boys. My father's brothers were 300 pounders. I got my mother's genes, so it's helping my job as a cardiologist. Some of it is genetics. So you got to be sympathetic about that. Don't judge someone because they're overweight. And I actually, when my son was in school, as a parent, it was a challenge for me because, what do you tell a kid? You're scared of telling them too much about eating because bulimia and all the eating disorders, so it's a fine balance. But it's a challenge, So something to just keep in context that, but I still have to do my job as a cardiologist, tell you eat less and exercise more. And so I'm going to tell you more about it, okay? So I just want to tell you, if any of you have heart disease, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and we physicians prescribe a lot of medications, control your blood pressure, give you cholesterol pills. Between lifestyle and medical treatment, you can see just diet is better than all what we do with medications. Together, it's 53% reduction in metabolic syndrome, okay? So I tell my patients that medications is only 20% of the formula. 80% is how you change your lifestyle. And it's kind of hard to change your lifestyle. So I'm going to tell you today about losing weight. It's portion control, and we'll talk a little about that. Exercise, increase your muscle mass. The the key is to increase your muscle mass. And when you exercise, I tell my patients, when they looked at people who are getting memory loss, nowadays, I never used to think about memory loss 10 years ago, but now I go to cocktail parties at my age, it's all about memory loss, And believe it or not, in another 20 years, it's going to happen. It's like my gray hair and reading glasses. I thought it won't happen. It's going to happen. It's when I had my reading glasses, I was only 40 and my hair was jet black. And my doctor said, Doc, you look 20 on the outside, but you're 40 on the inside. Here's your prescription. And similarly, it's going to happen. So it's interesting for memory loss when they look at memory loss. If you look at mental math, Sudoku, music, New York Times puzzles, crosswords, exercise, only one of them has shown to prevent memory loss. Guess which one it is? It's exercise. And so and the others help, but you have to exercise. And the key is when you exercise every day, you want to break into a sweat, a light sweat. You don't have to breathe, So if you break into a sweat, what it tells me is that every cell in your body is getting bathed with blood, okay? So you want your t-shirt to be wet when you're done with the exercise. Because if your t-shirt is wet, it tells me that every cell in your body is getting bathed with blood. Your brain cells are getting bathed with blood. So when you start exercising, you tell yourself, I want to be sweating. That's the way you want to look at it. That should be your goal. And typically it's about 30 to 40 minutes. 10-minute warm-up, another 30 minutes of exercise. Some of us prefer data, so pedometers help. Ideally, you should do about 17,000 steps a day. 10,000 steps is a C. And we want A+ at Ohio State, okay? And I don't want you doing 10,000 steps the first day. Start with 1,000 steps the first day, then add 1,000 steps every day and build it up to 10,000, or maybe 100 steps every day. Everyone's body is different, okay? And when my son was a little chunky and when he was younger, and I outsourced parenting, I got him a personal trainer to work out with, And so it's really important to invest in your health. You don't see it as an expense. My cousin's husband was a hedge fund manager in New York City, 48 years old. He's making $30-40 million a year. Complained of a little chest pain and he passed. And the reason I'm sharing this with you is there's no point having wealth if you don't have health. Okay? So look at this as an investment rather than an expense. Okay? You still have to write the check though. Okay? And so it's interesting, there was this paper which came out in October of 2017 which showed that if you skip breakfast, you have more blockages to the blood supply to your heart. Okay? And they looked at nearly 5,000 bank employees in Spain. Okay? And they found that the people who skip breakfast had more blockages to the blood supply to your heart. And I've been telling my patients for many years, eat like a horse for breakfast, a puppy for lunch, and a bird for dinner. Okay? And the reason, and you really want your heaviest meal to be in the morning because you're up and about on the go, and that's when you need the calories. At night, you're going to sleep for 8 to 10 hours, or ideally 7 to 8 hours. You need only about 70 calories every hour to sleep. Just think about it. You don't need that many calories. But guess what? We do just the opposite. We eat the biggest meal at night. You really want to make your breakfast your biggest meal. And I actually don't even eat carbs after 5 because carbs is a fuel. So I don't eat any carbs because you need carbs in the morning. I have a ton of carbs in the morning. And everybody knows in the office suite, even if there's candy after 5, like Cinderella, I won't touch it, I don't want to turn into a pumpkin after, So something to keep in mind, So I actually went on Fox TV here in Columbus, talked about eating breakfast every day, eat like a horse for breakfast. And I have an acronym to remind me what not to eat when I go for cocktail parties. I call it mind the gaps. Okay. G is for grain. I don't eat any rice, wheat, or corn. So when I am going for a movie tonight with my wife, I'm not going to eat the popcorn. It's sugar, corn sugar. Okay. You can have it before 5. If you like popcorn with your movies, watch the movie in the afternoon. Okay. Alcohol, wine, and beer are very starchy, contains carbs. You can have whiskey and gin, if you want to have a drink, but no more than 2 drinks for a male, and no more than 1 drink for a woman. Okay. No potatoes, no pasta, no sugars, no starch, no starchy vegetables, or no soda. So mind the gaps. Okay. And this link. If you want to see I won't bring it up now because of interest of time, but I discuss the gaps approach to. So what you're really doing is not eating carbs at night. And kind of interesting, this background, I was kind of chuckling later when I saw the background. It was all carbs in the background there, But the interview was in the morning, so I'm okay, So think about it. So it's really interesting. So the Pure study which came out in the Lancet around the same time in 2017 looked at 130,000 individuals from 18 countries, and they found that the people who had a high intake of fats and animal protein had lower death than people with high carbs. So it's not just me telling you, oh, carbs, it's a fuel, don't take it at night. It actually it saves lives. It's just not intuition, So this is a big study, they studied 18 countries. So it's going to be hard. So when I first went on the carbs diet, I found I first went off rice, okay? And I grew up in the south of India. Rice is like, you don't not eat rice, like not eating bread in this country. Okay, and then I went off corn, and then I went off bread. I did it in over a 3-month period. I didn't go off cold turkey, So that's a way to do it. Or sometimes I'll eat a snack at 4:30, and I'm good. And when I go home at night, I'll eat green veggies, and I'll eat my chicken. I'll eat my protein and a green veggie. So it's not like I starve. If you look at it, previous generation, whichever religion you belong, for Lent they fasted, and I'm not asking you to fast. Or Ramadan in Islam or Ekadashi in Indian religions, everyone fasted. What did we do? I remember when I grew up, the cookies were small like ginger snaps. Now they're like Frisbees, and we eat 3 of those, Think about it, it's kind of hard. And I'm telling you, if you eat a cookie at night, you're going to eat the second one because they're addictive. It's hard. So if you want to do it, so all these recommendations is not for diabetics. Okay, diabetics have to have a separate diet, but this is but it's kind of related. But it's diabetics need more specific. But even in diabetics, the diet is the cornerstone of the treatment. So you really have to keep diet in mind. So remember, high carbs, more chance of dying. And this is a huge study. Okay, so and I'm saying, if our ancestors could fast, okay, I'm not asking you to fast. I'm just saying skip carbs, okay, after 5. You can do it. So it's interesting. They looked at there's a book called The Power of Habit. It's a yellow book by Charles Duhigg. It's in the Amazon top 20 books which are sold. He said if you change one keystone habit, okay, one keystone habit in the day, the rest of your day falls into place. And in some ways, I think some of the reasons why my patients who maintain the gratitude journal, just changing that keystone habit, then slowly the rest of the day falls into place. So pick a habit which is the easiest to stick to first. Okay, so you change that habit, then the other habit, go for the low-hanging fruit, then it's easier, then try to go for the tough ones first. Because then you can't. So in the power habit, it says it takes about two months to change a habit. It's not, So I hadn't read the book, but I just so happened when I went off that, when I went off the carbs, I did it in a graded fashion. The toughest part is I have some friends who are vegetarians, and the Indian vegetarian food is all carbs. I once went to a dinner to one of my closest friends' place, and there was not a single dish I could eat because it's all carbs. So I figured out now, if I know it's, so I eat my chicken meatballs and go for dinner, because I'm not going there for the food, I'm going for the company, okay? So talking about companies, it's really interesting. They found that people who live longer, a lot of people are spiritual, but it's not the spirituality only. It's about being meaningfully engaged with the community. Okay, and they found that if you're religious, but if you're a loner, you don't live that long. Okay, you're not that religious, but your spouse is religious, so you go to the church or the temple, or whatever your house of worship, synagogue, and you interact with the congregation. That interaction, just interacting with the community, keeps you living longer. And it's kind of interesting. I'm a geek. To get into medical school, you have to be a geek. You have to read books, and and so my wife, I think the women, my wife has a lot of her friends. She's like last night she was with her friends going out, and kind of makes sense because interacting with that community, like when you go to cocktail parties, you have to actually engage, be sensitive, because you say the wrong thing, people get offended. And on the days I go out for dinner, and even if I don't drink, because like when I'm on call I won't, I sleep well that night, because just interacting with the community requires you to be on the go. In fact, the brain is only 2% of our body weight. Can you beat it? And the heart pumps 20% of the blood to this one organ, the brain. Okay, and so we don't realize the brain is such a powerful engine, which is such an energy hog, and the heart has to pump blood, and only 80% goes to the rest of our body, our back, our legs. So there's no question that if you go to the old age homes, it's all women, very few men. And I think there are two reasons. We men are so dependent on our spouses. When we lose a spouse, we crumble within a year. The women, when they lose a spouse, they say one less job and live another 30 years. And quite frankly, I used to see my wife coming back from work. And she was at that time one of the junior vice presidents at JP Morgan. She would work a full day and come home, kick her shoes off like you all do, and go straight to the kitchen and work with the kids' stuff, and only at 9 o'clock sit down to work and to kind of relax. And I was thinking, a long day, I kick my shoes off and looking at the TV, And it's all about being meaningfully engaged rather than TV time and doing things and being on the go. And I think it's so important to be on the go all day, okay? And that's what I'm really trying to say. And I think, plus, I think the women get it right. They live longer because they live in the moment. Like when we go out for dinner, when my wife and her friends are there, they're taking selfies. And I'm thinking of like Monday morning clinic, It's the ability to live in the present and be engaged, And so something to keep in mind. And it's so important to do that, okay? And talking about the blood supply to the brain, a lot of my patients will refuse to use the CPAP, but the heart pumps so much of blood to the brain. If they're not getting oxygen due to sleep apnea, the heart has to pump harder and gets weaker. And I've lost so many patients because they refuse their CPAP. So if you have a loved one who needs CPAP, hustle them, tell them the mask is like a new pair of shoes. It's going to take 3-4 weeks to get in, Don't give it up in a few days. So if you have sleep apnea, if there's a family member, think about it. And they looked at people who are more kind of disciplined, and there was this big study where we are more disciplined with physicians' recommendations. You live longer, something to keep, don't argue with your doctor or your nurse practitioner. There's data to support that. There's a big Lancet there. And I talked to you about eat like a horse in the morning, And I went on national TV. I myself lost 10 pounds in 18 months doing the GAPS diet. Okay. So this is from CardioSmart, from the American College of Cardiology. It's got some advice on what makes a healthy breakfast. Essentially, I tell my patients or my friends if they're healthy, you can eat anything for breakfast because you're going to burn it off. It's the night part you're going to be careful about. It's kind of hard to eat dessert in the morning. I understand that. So one way to lose weight is look at the plates. In the US, like I said, everything is big here. Even the plates are big. I lived in the UK for 7 years, and I was really shocked when I first came here because I was in London, and I went to the Pizza Hut in London, and if I ordered a pizza, I got a small personal pizza. And then I went to Copley Square Pizza Hut, and I said, I want a pizza. She said, here or to go? She said, for you? I said, yeah. She said, you want the whole pizza? I said, yeah. She looked at the thin Indian guy, like, is he going to eat the whole pizza? Because it's huge pizza. And guess what? It was less expensive than the pizza in London because the food is so inexpensive in this country, and we just kind of eat it because our parents told us people in Africa are starving. Don't waste food. But I tell my patients that you trash your body if you don't trash the food, if you eat excessively. And really, it pains me even now because I grew up in India, there's a lot of poverty, but it really, like the Bangalore, which is the city which I grew up, when I grew up, there was no prosperity, but now with all this computing, there are all this, but 27% of Bangalore is diabetic now. So what do people do? When you have a little bit of wealth, you eat out, you eat more. And our previous generation got it. They fasted, they were rigorous, they were physically active, they were meaningfully engaged in the community. Our meaningful engagement is pulling our cell phone out and talking to others on Twitter and other things, And I think some of the, I kind of feel sad about the opioid epidemic. I think about it every day because 4,000 people in the state of Ohio died of opioids. I think we've become so nuclear, we don't, that interaction. They say, in fact, if you want people to help them, like even if you can go down to the, like let people help you. Like if you need some sugar and you don't have sugar, instead of running to the store next door, just go to your neighbor and just interact with them. It's so important to interact with the community. So my snow guy broke my basketball hoop in his Bobcat, and then my neighbor came and picked up he took it off, he took it to his next door, he put it in his truck, he took it home and he fixed it and brought it back and fixed it. It's so important, to interact. We tend to just get into our garage down, come back, just see the kids next summer and you lose. So try to interact. I'm not necessarily your neighbors, but friends and family. Try to be less nuclear if you can. It's so important. It's all a part of wellness. And then, so the food, get rid of all your big plates because this is the same amount of food, but on a small plate it looks huge. And a big plate, but it's the same amount of food. So if you want to lose weight, this is called the Delboff illusion. So give away all the big plates to Salvation Army. Buy a bunch of tiny plates if you want to lose weight. It's kind of hard. So the other thing is, what we do is when we eat, we tend to try to finish everything. They say if you wait 20 minutes between your salad course and your main course, you'll eat less. Because by then the stomach would have sent a signal to the brain you're full. It's called the 20-minute gap. So try to do that. If that's one of the things, then you won't feel so hungry. The problem is then your evening becomes a little longer because then you have to do the washing, cleaning of the plates, and many of you are like busy moms, like 3 minutes is all you can do to eat. But losing weight is not easy. It takes a village to lose weight. It's not one person losing weight. So keep that in mind. Try to get your friends and family. So these are the guidelines hot off the press. So this is from the JAMA patient page. You can look it up anytime. But biggest source of added sugars, cakes, cookies, candy, ice cream, spice, soda. And I already talked about sugars. Now even the snack bars got a lot of sugar. And even the flavored yogurts. So yogurts is flavored? No. And even cereals have sugar. So you can have cereal in the morning. Even flavorings added to coffee, tea, and beverage. And 1 teaspoon of sugar is equal to 16 calories. And I'll show you why calories, it's easier to, the other reason I'm thin is because I eat less calories. It's easier to eat less than exercise more. and I'll show you that. So one can of Coke is here, 140 calories, okay? And to burn that 140 calories, she's sewing and knitting there. She'll have to she'll have to keep sewing for another 4 hours to burn this can of Coke, okay? Or if you think a lawnmower helps you, you'll still, if you're like 150 pounds like me, you'll have to do 30, you'll have to drink 1.5 hours of mowing to lose that 1 can of Coke. It's amazing how much calories, or even like you'll have to do like 30 minutes of square dancing, okay? So it's hard to lose weight by eating, it's my sister loves her food, but she can't lose weight. Even though she exercised 40 minutes in the gym every day, guess why? It's the food, Put a big sticker on the fridge. What goes through my lips sticks to my hips. Whatever helps you to lose weight, it's hard. And I talked about eating like a horse for breakfast. I want to repeat that. A puppy at lunch and a bird at dinner. This is at the OSU Wexner Medical Site. I like this photograph from 20 years ago. When I first came to OSU, they're still putting it on the thing, and I'm not taking it off. So this is a really interesting article which came in the American College of Cardiology. So the average American eats, the recommendation is less than 2 grams of salt. I showed you in the 2 slides before. Let me show that slide again if it's still there. Where is this? The salt. Okay, it's another figure. Okay. So anyway, this is the one. Okay. So the average American, the recommendation is about 2.3 grams of salt per day. And just to let you know, 2 slices of pizza contains 2.2 grams. So just 2 slices of pizza can, and forget the bacon and if you have high blood pressure and salt is a big deal, give all your canned food away to Salvation Army. Eat fresh food. The advantage of fresh food is expensive. And I say it's expensive because then you'll eat less. So a lot of people buy canned food because it's cheaper, but then you'll eat more. I'd much rather eat less fresh food than more. So something to keep in mind. So anyway, they found that when you eat more than 3, so the average American eats 7 grams of salt, and the people who eat TV dinners eat 22 grams. Just think about it. And when this study came out in the American College of Cardiology, when you eat more than 3.7 grams of salt, your heart is much bigger. So every time you add salt to the meal, tell yourself you're marinating your heart to be my patient. I'm a heart failure doc. You're weakening your heart. And you can prevent that. So if your kidneys are fine, I use a modern salt substitute. It's a potassium salt, but your kidneys should be fine. It's not as salty as sodium salt, and actually it's available in Giant Eagle. I buy it at Amazon, but whatever, So it's something to flavor, or use Mrs. Dash, or try to use, for example, if you have omelette, try to use pepper rather than salt. It's very difficult to eat low salt food. In fact, it's impossible to eat less than 2 grams because we all need some salt in a day. In the good old days, there were no fridges, so they used salt as a preservative. That's why you have the bacon is salted, the meat is salted. And so it was a preservative. And if you're not a good cook, what do? You throw salt on the food. Go to any of the Michelin-starred restaurants. You're giving $300 for a plate of salt, for more salt, really. It just comes with it, So something to keep in mind. So try to think of. So this is an editorial which I wrote with an old Jamaican saying, "Salt never calls itself sweet." I wrote this way back in 2009, and I talked about the 20 grams of salt. The average U.S. salt intake is as high as 20 grams per day, and an average is 10 to 12, and the recommendation is 2.3. And these are the 4 questions you want to ask. Do you use prepared foods such as frozen dinners, canned foods, processed meats and cheeses? Do you eat salty snacks like chips, salted nuts? Do you eat at restaurants? And do you salt your food at the table? In fact, I had this patient of mine, his heart function was down, ejection fraction is 10%, normal heart function is 60%. And his wife was really good. She really cut down on the salt. She kept, and I first had him in 2001. And just last year, I think he's like 78, He said, okay, I'm going to the old Dutch buffet. He went to the old Dutch buffet and his heart went into florid heart failure. Now we have him on home inotropes. Salt is really poison, in large quantities. You really have to keep that in mind. And I had another patient when I was in Ann Arbor. I won't mention the M word now that Judy's in the audience. And I remember we got all the food off her, but she got that salt craving. She went straight from the hospital to the old country buffet, and she came right back full of fluid, And salt is pretty powerful in salt-sensitive people, but you can see that salt is a big deal, And exercise, this is what came on the dispatch if you want to see. I tell all my patients it's a bell curve. I don't allow any of my patients or my friends to run marathons. If you over-exercise, you live half as long. The sweet spot is 40 minutes a day. So I tell people, if marathons is like drag racing, overreaching on your body. 40 minutes is like taking your body out for a spin. And 20 minutes is like idling the engine in the garage. And doing 20 minutes a day is like idling the engine in the garage twice a day. Okay? So I really want you to start with 5 minutes today, do 6 minutes tomorrow, do 7 minutes the day after. Remember, this is the rest of life. I even make my 92-year-olds do 40 minutes of exercise every day. Remember, the goal is to get every cell in your body to sweat. So if you sweat, you are bathing every cell in your body with blood. Okay? So something to keep in mind. So there was a study which just came out last week, and it showed 1,100 firefighters from Indiana. If they could do 40 push-ups in a minute, they had less heart disease. So I won't show you, but this is Dr. Capers in his tie. He was giving a lecture in Wisconsin. He saw this, and if you go to this link on Twitter, he can do 40. In 1 minute, he did 40 push-ups. Okay? So it's kind of so energizing. Remember, you're trying to get the blood supply to your brain. So, and on the same, if any of you had a stress test, they give you a number called METS. Okay? So it's kind of a bell curve. So you want to keep exercising. So this is about survival. If your exercise thing is less than 7 METs, your longevity is the least, your death rate is higher. But if you're up to about 10 METs, I told you about the bell curve, it plateaus off, somewhere between 9 to 10, your longevity is the best. Okay? So if you're going to the gym and exercising, try to see how many METs you are. Remember 10, it's a nice number to remember. Okay? Below 7 is bad. Okay? I don't want you doing marathons either. And I'll show you the data for that. So this is the data I told you. The people who, the sweet spot is running about 10 miles a week. Okay? When you do too much, like you do marathons, then your mortality is higher. Okay? I told you about the bell curve. This is a U curve, which is a inverted bell curve. So the sweet spot for survival is about 40 minutes a day. Okay? Okay, so I talked about pedometers. And then, so the key take home, I want you to say there are 3 good things. Try to exercise first thing in the morning. Because if you keep it late in the day, you're going to push it. You're tired that day. They were interviewing the CEO of Microsoft, and he was promoting his book, and he makes about $90 million a year. And they asked him, what do you do with the first thing in the morning? And I thought he'll say, I'll brush my teeth, I think. He said, no, he's got his running shoes next to where as soon as he wakes up, he's got his water bottle and running shoes. He wears it and does 40 minutes on a treadmill every day. A $90 million person can do it. We all can do it. Whichever party you belong to, whether it's George Bush Jr. or President Obama, I have to mention it for Tracy. They all exercise. They played basketball. You know what I mean? So keep that in mind. So do your exercise first thing in the morning, okay? Minimize carbs after 5 and mind the gaps. And gratitude diary or journal just before you go to bed at night. So if you frame your end of the day with, you start your day with exercise and energize yourself, and then end your day with the gratitude journal, then the rest of the day falls into place. Then cutting down on carbs comes automatically. So start with the gratitude diary, is probably the easiest. Start your exercise first thing in the morning, start with 5 minutes. They say that you should get up about 2 hours before you start going to work, because then you can do all your other things, your breakfast and things like that, shower, and then do your 30 minutes of exercise. So I'm going to stop here, and any questions, go ahead.
Hi, thank you so much. That was very interesting and informative. You made the comment earlier about wine not necessarily being ideal. Does that include red wine? Like
Yeah,
a
it
glass
does.
a day? I just need an excuse.
Yeah, so the red wine data is really, there's no robust data. So actually, if you know, I was visiting Professor Italy, and I lived in Europe too. But I was then in Europe. It's not the Mediterranean diet, or it's just the wine. Have you been like in Florence when I was in the Amalfi Coast when I was lecturing? Like when I was in Florence, I couldn't find a place to park. I had to park my car out of the city and walk downtown. It's not just the wine; it's all the activity going on, and it's all the small portion control. In fact, the American Heart Association thing is, if you're drinking in moderation, no need to stop it. But if you don't stop doing it. But if you're not drinking, don't start doing it, because there's no data about wine. And I don't think it's just the wine. I think it's the whole morning to evening, But if you enjoy a glass of red wine, there was one study which came out recently, and I probably should have put it, that any alcohol is bad for you, I'm a kind of a middle of the road guy. I think too much is bad, but I don't know. It's, if you actually look at the hunter-gatherers, okay, the primitive man before farming came into thing, they hunted and they ate only when they were hungry, okay. It's only after farming came 10,000 years ago, and we became laborers and farmers, all the grain came into motion. So it's all the physical activity. It's the whole span of the day. So if you're not drinking red wine, don't start doing it.
Hi, I was just curious how you felt about the keto diet.
The keto diet?
Yeah, if you think it's
As I said, all these diets, they all have, it's all about portion control, including what I've been telling you. Okay, if Michael Phelps, the swimmer, he swam 12 hours a day and he ate 12 egg breakfast. It's all about calorie control. The only reason of the keto diet is I'm a middle of the road guy philosophically. I don't believe in extremes.
Yeah.
And so it may work for you, but if you're not, it may push you over the edge too. I don't know that, but I think all diets in moderation are good.
Okay, thank you.
Any other question? Oh, right here.
Similarly, like CrossFit and things like that, I'm not. It's too much of a good thing,
I just wanted to get your thoughts on taking krill oil and or fish oil as a supplement.
Yeah, it's a great question. Just a recent study came on fish oil good for you. It depends on your DNA. So this is the slide. So most of the fish oil studies were negative. Having said that, one paper came out from Harvard with a particular kind of fish oil. The problem with the fish oil available over the counter, they contain mercury because they're made from fish from the Great Lakes. And the fish oil, it depends on your DNA. If you're an Inuit Indian, or if you're a Viking, maybe you have the genes. But someone like me, an Indian guy, it won't work. So that's why the fish oil studies didn't show any benefit. And I'm talking about heart disease. I don't know about dementia and all that, but I think if you exercise, you don't need the fish oil. But Costco will be happy because they sell a ton of fish oil. Yeah, yeah. That's,
One last.
Just like eggs, it's good, it's bad, hormones, who knows what, for an option for additional protein source.
I think people are vegetarian with it. It's very difficult to, if you're vegetarian, it's very difficult to have, it's difficult. Then tofu may be an option. The only reason I don't know much about tofu is I hate tofu. And my wife is trying to get me to eat tofu. No way. I'd much rather eat my red meat. The thing is, I think the red meat is fine. It's the mashed potato that kills you. And again, in moderation. It's the carbs, it's the carbs, it's the carbs.
All right, with that, if we can give them a round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you. You guys can turn in those evaluation forms that we've handed out. We greatly appreciate it. That's how this presentation was recommended again. Our next Lunch and Learn is March 22nd on portion control and strategic snacking. So see you then.